Welcome back, Sebastian here. So, a bit delayed, but it's now time for my Formula E power rankings for the Jakarta ePrix. So, starting off at number 22, one of the debut drivers from this past weekend, David Beckman. So, for Beckman, I think not a great debut in Formula E. Was qualified by his teammate Jake Dennis quite heavily, and I think Dennis qualified at the back of his qualifying group in both races. And unfortunately, he also had that unfortunate collision in the second race, which led to his retirement from that second race. Number 21, Roberto Meri in the Mahindra, the other debutant. So for Meri, it was a bit of a tricky weekend. That being said, he generally kept it clean, kept it on track, and while he was suffering quite a bit in power usage during the races, the qualifying I didn't think was too bad, especially given the lack of testing time. Number 20, Rene Rast. So for Rast, another tough weekend. Had that collision with Sam Bird, I believe, the first race, which led to him being penalized and knocked out of the points. Second race was a bit more anonymous, and nothing really to show for it either. Number 19, moving up 2 positions, mostly because 2 drivers who were in Formula E before have either left the series for the season or just for this weekend, and that is Sadi Kamara. So for Kamara, a bit of another very anonymous weekend, outraced, I think, and outqualified as well by his teammate Dan Ticktum in the first race. Second race was outqualified, but then again had that unfortunate DNS, did not start the race. Number 18, one of the big losers from Jakarta is Sam Bird, dropping 12 positions from Monaco. So for Bird, I think a second collision with his teammate Mitch Evans. Fortunately for him this time, it was in the minor points positions. I think Bird was in 8th and he was in 9th. But still, it's a really bad luck to hit your teammate twice in a season. And now it's to the point where I'm not sure if the team will bring him back for next year, given that he's had 2 extremely costly errors that in the long run could cost Mitch Evans a Formula E championship. Second race, I think, unfortunately for him, he had really bad qualifying and then couldn't start the race because of a technical problem. Number 17, moving up 1 position, is Edo Mortara. So for Mortara, a bit of a better weekend, but that being said, when you look at how he did compare to his teammate Max Günther, it's still fairly disappointing. I thought he only picked up points in the second race in Jakarta, and even so, it was an 8th place finish, where his teammate was winning the race by an absolute landslide. So a bit of a better weekend, but still not fantastic for Mortara. Number 16, moving down 2 positions, is Jake Hughes. So after getting a pole position in Monaco, qualifying in Jakarta was not so smooth. The races were okay, not fantastic either, kind of in the middle of mid-pack and having some good battles. Number 15, moving up 7 positions, a much better weekend overall, was Norman Nato. First race was a bit more anonymous, not a lot happened, but the second race in Jakarta was much better for Nato, finishing 5th and getting some really valuable points. He was a bit behind his teammate, but that being said, he was very close, and I thought had a much better overall weekend, I thought. Number 14, moving up 1 position, is Lucas de Grassis. Now, he's in probably the worst, he has the worst powertrain of all the powertrains in Formula E, the Mahindra. And so I think obviously it's much more difficult to judge his performances. That being said, I think, he was quite good, quite consistent, and was very close to getting points in both races. I think unfortunately the car is just really not there. So it's really difficult to judge his performances based on points alone. Okay, next, number 13, moving down 8 positions, is Sebastian Buemi. So for Buemi, really tough weekend, part of it his fault, part of it not really his fault. Of course, he had the first race, he dropped a ton of positions at the start because of pit lane. He accidentally turned the pit lane limiter on, which basically sent him to the back. He also had contact with Beckman, which resulted in a puncture. Second race was a bit better, but did end up getting a solitary point in 10th place, but it was quite a struggle all race long, especially when you saw that Evans was able to get a podium. But that being said, I think the Jaguar powertrain was not as good in Jakarta as it was in previous rounds. Number 12, moving down 3 positions, is Antonio Felix da Costa. So for da Costa, a bit of a tough weekend overall. Not as good as his teammate, but that being said, he still gets some points on the board. He was a bit lucky to get some good points in the second race with that front wing damage, but nonetheless was not great, but not terrible either. Number 11, moving up one position, is Dan Ticktum. So for Ticktum, really solid weekend, two races I thought in Jakarta. Almost got points in the second race, but I think the Neo is still not a fantastic car. I really am curious to see what Ticktum could do in a faster car. Like if you put him in an Andretti, for example, where he would finish relative to Dennis. Number 10, moving up 6 positions, I think this driver quietly had a really solid weekend in Jakarta, and that was Robin Frijns, who moves up 6 positions. He finished 9th in the first race. I think very few people realized that he finished 9th until the race finished. And I was actually very surprised because we had very little coverage of the back midfield, or of the midfield that race. So I didn't really realize that Frijns was in such a good position, but in the apt car. So I think kudos to him, really fantastic result for him. So he moves up 6 positions. Number 9, moving up 1 position, is Stoffel van Dorn. So for Van Dorn, really, I think weekend of 2 halves. The first race in Jakarta was pretty good. 4th place. Second race was a lot tougher. He was in that 4th place position, but then about 75% of the way through the second race, he dropped tons of positions. Not really sure what happened, if it was a car issue or if it was just they were struggling a lot with energy management, but I believe he finished in 9th that race, I believe. So still managed just to get some points, but of a tricky second race in Jakarta. Number 8, moving up 5 positions, is Sasha Fenestraz. A really good second race in Jakarta, finished in 4th. I think that's his best finish. Yeah, best finish in Formula E, I believe. So really good result for him. First race I think was a bit tougher, but still nonetheless a really good weekend. Number 7, moving down 3 positions, is Nico Müller. So for Müller, it's still a good weekend, I thought. The second race in Jakarta I thought was pretty good. He finished just outside the points. Second race as well. The first race as well, he was a bit behind his teammate, but not by a lot. And qualifying has been pretty good for Müller, much better than it was at the start of the year. And I think after finally starting to figure out how to get the software and the powertrain to be quicker, both on one lap pace and in the races. So that's good to see. I think they do have a pretty talented lineup. I think it's one that they should probably keep for next year. So it'll be interesting to see how they progress next year. Number 6, moving down 3 spots as well, is Jan-Erik Vergne. So for Vergne, a bit of a tricky weekend. The first race was a bit tough. I think he did finish just behind his teammate, but the second race was it looks like he had contact with either the wall or with another driver, and he had front wing damage, and he had to come into pit, and his race was basically over from there. So not a great weekend from Jev. Number 5, also moving down 3 positions. Now I could have moved this driver down more, but I decided no, only 3 spots is good, but we'll see how things go in the future, and that is former championship leader Nick Cassidy. So Cassidy, first race was not great, 7th place, but that being said, I think he was the highest placed Jaguar powertrain driver. I think the Jaguars were just struggling a lot in Jakarta. The second race, though, he made that really clumsy mistake, going for that very ambitious move on who was it? I think it was on Bearline, I think. And going into the corner with the attack mode, he comes from way too far back, and I think he damaged his front wing, and then he ended up basically having to spin to get back into position. So he basically finished well outside the points. I finished, I believe, last of the classified finishers. So really tough weekend for him, and he's going to be wanting to rebound and to get his championship challenge back on track at the next race in Portland. Number 4, moving up 7 positions, really good race weekend overall, I thought, for this driver, and that is Pascal Wehrlein, moving up 7 positions. Of course, getting the win in the first race, really excellent race. I thought the first race did a really good job of managing energy and pushing when he needed to. The second race was a bit tougher, but still managed to bring it home in good points paying position. So really solid, excellent weekend, I thought, for Pascal Wehrlein. Number 3, moving down 2 positions, is Mitch Evans. So for Evans, I don't think this was really of any fault of his own. I think it was really just the 2 drivers I have ahead of him, I think, had really excellent races in Jakarta. But for Evans, I think, he had that first race, he was running an 8. The Jaguars were struggling that race, and then he gets knocked out by his teammate. not his fault at all. Second race, I think it was almost a miracle he managed to get that podium. The race pace, I think, of the Jaguar was just not there. I think, given where all the other Jaguar cars finished in this race, well, basically when we finished in 10th, Jaguar Evans did a really fantastic job, I thought, in the second race. Number 2, moving up 6 positions, is Max Gunther. So for Gunther, first race Jakarta was really solid, pole in 3rd place, but the second race was basically perfect, pole and the win. So it was basically almost a perfect weekend in Jakarta, and from the very first practice session, Gunther's basically clicked. So as a result, I've moved him up to number 2 in my power rankings. Now number 1, moving up 8 positions, is Jake Dennis. So for Dennis, he's on a really nice streak of podiums, I believe, all the way back from the second race in Berlin. He's finished either 2nd or 3rd. So an extremely good run, an extremely consistent run, and it's really brought him back into championship contention. He's very, very close to the top of the Formula E championship now. So I think going into the last 5 races, I think that consistency, even if he doesn't win any of those 5 races, I think getting 2nd, 3rd, 4th will be extremely important. And if he can get 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in the 4 of those 5 races, or even all 5 races, I think he has an excellent chance at the championship. So that's all for my Formula E power rankings for the Jakarta ePrix. Of course, our next race is in Portland, which I believe is in 3 weeks' time. So it's looking forward to that. And of course, it's a purpose-built course, so it's very different from a street course. So I expect that the running order will be quite different there, and I'm quite looking forward to it. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.